Happy Monday and happy Labor Day to all of you out there in Big Orange Nation. This is your Everything Vols channel, the House of Orange. My name's Frank Rock. Want to talk about, want to start this each week. Guess we'll look at maybe on Monday, maybe even on Sunday at some point, depending on the content. But week one in the SEC recap. Thought there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened in the conference this week. Before we get into that, though, make sure you hit that thumbs up. You share out the content. That's the biggest thing to help me out here as well. If you have not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As last I checked, I'm 83 away from 2,000. That's pretty good in 9 months. If I can hit that for the end of the month, way ahead of projections. Thank you to all of you out there. If you want to support the channel, there are the membership tiers that are available. If you hit that join button, it will detail those. There's also the link for the House of Orange Patreon, $1 a month if you want to go to support the channel as well. But I appreciate your support along the way. Let's get right into this thing. The good, the bad, the ugly of week one. There was all three of them this week. And I'll start with the good. I'll start with Tennessee. I called it Tennessee versus the rest of the SEC because I really want to kind of compare Tennessee with the rest of the teams in the conference. Where do they fit? A lot of people's had them around 6th or 7th. And, I think based on week one, let's just start. That's where they're at. I don't know that Tennessee was impressive, but so were a lot of other teams too. And we can't sit here and say that, well, yeah, Tennessee was impressive over Chattanooga, but these other teams didn't play anybody. We can't go that route. So it's kind of all the same. All the teams that were impressive. Just kind of recapping the week. You had Missouri Thursday night, 51-0 over Murray State. They took care of business as they should. Arkansas 70-0 over Arkansas Pine Bluff. They took care of business. They're a team. Tennessee has them coming up in the 1st of October. People are circling that one as a potential trap game. And it's never easy for Tennessee when they go to Fayetteville. I don't expect it will be this year either. Arkansas had a tough year last year, so they're kind of circling the wagons this year. That's Sam Pittman and that coaching staff. I got to think there's probably some heat on the seat this year. So good start for them, 70-0. Again, it's irrelevant to me, the caliber of competition, because Tennessee should have annihilated and throttled Chattanooga. They did. They were very impressive with it. You got to give these other teams their credit as well, because it's not always easy to do that, to come out and play it. Oklahoma, I watched a bit of them on Friday night, 51-3. They look very good. Georgia, number one team in the nation. I'm just going down the line right here. So, as they've got them on the scoreboard. Georgia 34-3 on Clemson. Kerry and I talked about it last week. We talked a little bit about that one. I think a lot of people expected Georgia to throttle Clemson, and they did. Clemson looked bad. And I don't know if that was a case of Georgia's that good. I think it's a case of Georgia's that good. I don't think Clemson is that bad. But I don't think Clemson's that good either, if that makes sense. I don't think they're very good. There was numerous people on the ESPN panel who picked Clemson to go to the playoffs. I don't see it. And I'll tell you why here in just, and I'll get into a little bit of the ACC as well. Texas 52-0 over Colorado State, took care of business. Alabama, first game post Nick Saban with Kalen Moore, 63-0 over Western Kentucky. They had an impressive evening. Ole Miss 76-0 on it. Jackson Dart, 418 yards, 5 touchdowns. Heck of a game for him. Going back to Georgia, Carson Beck is your preseason Heisman Trophy favorite. He did nothing to dispel that. 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. That Georgia team's going to be hard to beat this year. I still maintain last year they were the best team in the nation. They tripped up against Alabama, and you got to give Alabama credit for beating them in that game. But, they talked last year about, the best 4 teams should have been in. If that's theoretically right, Georgia was one of the best 4 teams last year. If that's what you're saying, that won't be an argument this year. Georgia does have a tough schedule with games at Georgia, or at Alabama, Texas, and Ole Miss. 3 tough games. Can they win them all? Yes. Is it possible they slip up and lose some? It is. But this is a good football team. They're loaded with talent. They are loaded with talent. They made Clemson look bad. And the Dabo Swinney era slowly coming to an end, unless He adapts. He evolves. If he doesn't, it's not going to be long. Clemson will find somebody who will. No matter what he's done for the program, he's trying to be stubborn and old school. I mean, I get it. I get what he's doing. But in this day and age of college football, you either keep up or you get run out. It happened to Philip Fulmer. Now, not to this extent with NIL and the portal, but Philip Fulmer failed to adapt to college football. That was what led to him getting let go. Now, hindsight's 2020. Should they have given him another chance? Possibly so. But, it is what it is. You don't adapt, you're going to get run out. And that's where Dabo, it's happening. It's slowly but surely happening. Again, back to Ole Miss, 76-0. I mean, we thought Tennessee was impressive over Chattanooga. Ole Miss come up and won up them 76-0 over Furman. A&M loses 23-13. Well, let me come back to that. Tennessee 69-3 over Chattanooga. Tennessee's offense in that first half just impressive. And Mississippi State wins 56-7. I think Jeff Lebby was a good hire for Mississippi State. He's going to be like Josh Heupel in terms of the offense he runs. I'll be curious to see how long it takes him to develop and get that team competitive, because I think he plays the right style that will lead to good things for him. Auburn 73-3 over Alabama A&M. Hugh Freeze got them rolling. A lot of hype around them. And then Kentucky, their game got cut short, but they were pretty dominant in their win 31-0 over Southern Miss. So that was the good for the week. Lots of good performances throughout the conference. I'll get into week 2 here in a minute. Here's the bad to me. I think A&M's pedestrian. They're ranked 20th. I think they're overranked on it. They're not. I think Mike Elko is going to have a little bit of a job, and that's nothing against him. I think that goes back to the shape that Jimbo Fisher left that program in. Number one, A&M made the mistake of hiring Jimbo Fisher. He was getting close to being done at Florida State, and A&M, for some ridiculous reason, went and bailed Florida State out and paid him to come in. Did Florida State a favor. But I think it's going to take a little time for Elko just because of the mess that Jimbo left. Now, no shame in losing to Notre Dame. They were competitive, but their offense was they've had a quarterback issue for a bit. We saw it last year when Tennessee played them. Of course, Tennessee's defensive line won that game for them pretty much. It was kind of an old school battle in terms of points hard to come by. The D. Williams punt return was huge. But I think A&M's going to struggle on offense this year. I expect them to be I expect them to be around 500 this year. I can't see them beating a lot of your good teams in the conference. Now, teams do improve from one week to the next, so that could come into play for them as well. LSU losing last night. Brian Kelly, you guys have seen it, slamming his fist on the table, mad, saying there was no reason we should have lost this game. Yeah, they probably shouldn't have, but I think a lot of people pegged them as overrated coming in. They're 13th. They're going to drop this week. And no shame losing to USC. USC's going to have a good team this year. But the SEC in Power 4 games this week, 1-3. 1-3. Man, I did not even – how did I miss this here? I got to back up a minute. Good. How about Vanderbilt? Beating Virginia Tech. Some people high on Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt was up 17-0. They got down 7 in the fourth quarter. They come back, forced overtime, and got the victory. Hats off to Vanderbilt. Never a fan of Vanderbilt. Never want to see Vanderbilt win. But also at the same time, let's give them their props where they're due. That program has struggled for a while now. That was a big win for them. I don't know how they do in the SEC. I don't expect much out of them this year. But they're not the worst team in the conference either. There's a couple other teams that have got that honor that I'll get to here in a minute. But how did I not get to them? I should have probably led that off with the good. Maybe right behind what Georgia did to Clemson. But impressive win for Vanderbilt. Hats off to them, Clark Lee, in that program. We'll see how they build on it from there. Back to the bad. Of course, LSU losing. I think LSU's in for a tough year. We'll see. I just don't have high hopes on. I'm not big on LSU. I think their quarterback issues are going to show up. They lost some talent from last year as well. Brian Kelly is a good coach. I don't like him, but he is a good coach. Will he get it turned around? He's going to be fired up after that one. I would consider those the bad and the ugly. The ugly, South Carolina won. That was ugly. That was ugly against Old Dominion. This is it for Shane Beamer this year. All right. This just goes back. Even their own fans are saying this now. It's pretty obvious now, 2 years ago, that Connor Stallions relayed some signs to Shane Beamer and staff for the Tennessee and Clemson games. They have not had any other games during the Shane Beamer tenure where they've looked anything like that. Not that year, not prior to it, and not after it. Okay? It is pretty obvious at that point that there's no conspiracy to it. I think it's pretty factual as to what happened. That program, their quarterback was very pedestrian. Yeah, he can run, but there's no throwing. If Old Dominion's quarterback, he was pretty bad too. If Old Dominion had any kind of a competent quarterback, they would have beaten South Carolina. Their quarterback was not good. South Carolina's in for a rough year. They're going to be lucky to win a game in the conference. They'll probably squeak one out, one of the home games. They'll come up and surprise somebody, but I don't see Sellers being their quarterback long term. He can't throw. He can run. That's great. You got to be able to throw the football in this league. South Carolina's in big trouble. If I'm South Carolina fans, I would go ahead and get my coaching board ready for next season, unless you want to stick it out with Beamer. I think you've seen the best you're going to see out of Shane Beamer, and that's when somebody relays signs to him. It is what it is. It's not sour grapes. It is a fact, because if they followed that up and looked like that the rest of the time, sure, maybe so. They haven't. I mean, they played decent in that bowl game against Notre Dame that year and got beat. But other than that, last year, they were awful. Prior to that Tennessee game 2 years ago, they were awful. And then all of a sudden, they're world beaters against Tennessee and Clemson. Give me a break, man. Beamer's done. Beamer's a clown. He can move along. And then now I think two things are true on this next one, Florida. It was ugly. I think Miami's pretty good, though. I really think Miami is pretty good. It's going to get tested over time. But them picking up Cam Ward was seen as a pretty big pick. He was arguably the best quarterback in the portal this past season. There were some good ones that went around, don't get me wrong. But Cam Ward, Miami getting him. I mean, our old boy Tyler Barron, he had a good game against Florida on Saturday. They were dominant. And Cam Ward, man, his throws, he made some really good throws. And Miami, based on what I've seen so far, Miami looks to be like the best team in the ACC. Now, is that an overreaction to week one? Possibly so. We'll know over a little bit of time. We'll see when Clemson plays somebody more on their level. But I'll tell you, watching Clemson, watching Miami, I think Miami throttles Clemson. Miami's got the quarterback play. They have the guys that can make plays. Clemson does not have the quarterback play on their team. Florida, on the other hand, I think they played a good team, a really good team on Saturday, but this Florida team's not very good. They're not very good. I'm putting South Carolina as the worst team in the conference right now. I'm going to put Florida just above them. And this is the year that there's absolutely no reason for Florida to come to Knoxville and even be competitive with Tennessee. Now, we're going to find out more about Tennessee this week. Obviously, as they play NC State. I previewed that last night. Spoiler alert, I expect a blowout city in the Queen City, as I said. That's what I'm expecting. Spoiler alert. Check that out if you have not already. But overall, how does Tennessee compare against the rest of these teams? It's going to be a tough conference. Make no mistake about it. Your two newcomers, we knew they would be strong coming in. Your teams, LSU disappointed. LSU should have won last night. Florida was awful. Texas A&M, I don't think Texas A&M is going to be very good. South Carolina's horrific. Vanderbilt surprised. Hats off to Vanderbilt. Can they sustain? Can they build on that with momentum? But if you're Tennessee, you got to be encouraged on what you saw in week one. But you also got to be realistic that other teams look very good in week one as well. You're going to have to bring it every week, starting this week, and definitely when you get to the conference. I don't know that on Tennessee's schedule that there's really an easy game. Florida should be, but we know how that rivalry's gone. It never seems to matter. It doesn't matter what it is with Tennessee and Florida. So, yeah, I mean, there's games definitely Tennessee should win. I still think they should throttle Vanderbilt at the end of the year. There's teams I expect them to beat, but it's SEC, man. It's dog eat dog. You better bring it every week. It's going to be a big year in the conference, especially adding Oklahoma and Tennessee gets them in 3 weeks. That's going to be exciting. And if Tennessee lives up to what they should do this weekend, they'll go into that Oklahoma game 3-0. That'll be a big-time game. I expect that to probably be a primetime game. Who knows? That could be a game day game as well, especially with Oklahoma's first game in the SEC that day. We'll wrap up on that one. No live show tonight. We decided to cancel it tonight, but going to pick the content back up. Had a little bit of a slow week last week. Just sometimes you need a couple days away from it, just to be honest with you. But if you like the content, thumbs up, share. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. I hope you have if you're off today, I hope you have a great rest of your day off. If not, I hope you have a great Monday as well. Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. I'll see you when I see you, and happy Labor Day.
Everyone